All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. This is obviously the August edition of the EVAC meeting. So welcome to everybody here today. I'm surprised we have so many. Usually it's a little bit bare in the summers because everybody's out on vacation, but we got a pretty good crowd here tonight. So anyway, welcome. Let's go ahead and get with the meeting here, and I'll try to avoid the photon cannon here that's aimed at me. All right, well, welcome for those in the room, which is all you, and for those that are out on Zoom as well. As we say every time, thanks for being here with us tonight. We appreciate you being here. As always, we hope you enjoy yourselves, and it looks like you have been because it took me 5 minutes to get you in your seats. That's a good gauge that you're enjoying yourself. We hope you learned something interesting here tonight. That'll be the job of our speakers. So we have a few speakers here tonight. We hope you make a new friends. So if you haven't met somebody new, try to meet somebody new here tonight. And we hope you reconnect with old friends. That's always a good thing too. If you have your cell phones, which we pretty much always do these days, let's go ahead and get those things on stun right now, vibrate. I did mine just a few minutes ago so that we don't have interruptions during the meeting. And any visitors here tonight? Any first-time visitors that would like to actually say I'm a first-time visitor? If so, please raise your hand and say hi. We'll get a microphone over to you for the folks on Zoom. And it's really hard. It's actually written up there on the screen what we like to know from you. So,
my name is Lacey. I found you. We went to the Star Party Friday, okay. And I don't have much experience, but I thought it looked fun. And my favorite thing about space is that there's just so much you can learn. It never will, I'll never stop learning about it. So
cool. All right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carissa. This is Avery and Ella. I also found you from the Star Party, so I'm really excited to be here and learn about space.
All right, thank you for joining us. Anybody else here tonight? That's new. Is that it? Okay, so very good. All right, well, thank you. Welcome for you folks. We appreciate you here. I'll be sure to get snacks and food and enjoy the lectures and all that good stuff here tonight. All right, tonight's agenda, we have our general announcements that we always have. That'll be 5 minutes tops to get through the general announcements. We'll have our public outreach update given to us by Alice here in just a few minutes. James is going to sort of talk about a new Star Party opportunity he's trying to put together. So James will be talking about that Club Star Party here in just a bit. And then we actually have a couple of member presentations, as you can see there as well. James will be talking to us about this thing, is what he'll be talking about. And then we have Nathan Esky is going to talk a little bit about the Unistellar eVscope 2 that we got for public outreach. If you have never seen one, it's that big tall thing standing up in the corner over there. Pretty much at zenith, I would say, right at the moment. So anyway, so he'll be talking about that a little bit. Then we'll take our short break that we always do so you can socialize for a little bit, use the restroom, get something to snack on. And then we have Mark Johnston here. He was here earlier this year. He's back with us again, and he'll be talking about some of the major observatories down in Chile. So we'll have that going for us as well. All right, let's see here, general announcements. So once again, are you a joiner? Well, you can always join our club if you haven't already done so. And so you can join it 2 different ways. You can do it here at the meeting at the back table. So Brooks is at the back table there against the wall, and he's happy to sign you up and take your membership dues and all that stuff. Dues are great because they help pay the bills. So it helps pay for all those snacks on the back table that we have here tonight. It helps pay for our speaker. It helps build that booth that you see over there today that we set up today for you so you can see. So membership is important and dues are important as well. If you'd like to know what's happening here at EVAC at any given month or week, whatever, use at least 4 ways to know. You can sign up for our email distribution list, and you'll get probably in the neighborhood of maybe 6, 7 emails a month out of that. And that's our primary way to communicate with all of you is through this email alias. So as different events are happening or whatever else, we'll usually use the email alias to announce that. So like last month when we did the big trip down to Tucson on the bus, we use that as one of our communication methods to get a hold of everybody. In addition to being able to subscribe to our email alias and get information that way, you can always go to our website as well, and out on the events and meetings page, there is a Google Calendar, a Gmail calendar, a Google Calendar out there, and you can click on any given day. It'll show you what's happening and kind of give you a little bit of details of what's happening that way. In addition to that, we have a newsletter. You can actually sign up. If you sign up for our email alias, you'll get the newsletter automatically in your email every month. You can also go to our website and pull it down manually if you'd like to do so as well. Morgan Moran's doing great things with the newsletter. Every month he adds some new little thing that just seems kind of fun and interesting. And so I'm really happy to see what Morgan is doing with our newsletter. And then we also have a Facebook page that's not just our club. It's about 1,100 people now out on our Facebook page. The Facebook page is cool because that allows you to communicate with other people as well. Most of the email stuff is pretty much locked down to just sort of the staff of the club. Only they can use or send the emails. But if you want to advertise, hey, is anybody going to Picket Post? Or, hey, I got this scope I'd like to sell for, X number of dollars, whatever else. You can use our Facebook page to do that. And not only goes to everybody in here, but like I said, there's about 1,100 people now on that Facebook page. So you get a lot of reach across the valley here if you want to put things out on Facebook. If you need a telescope or training on how to use a telescope, James, this will be you here coming up pretty quick, so hang on. We have equipment for sale and equipment for rent. So we have equipment coming in all the time that we resell. In fact, just this last 2 weeks, we've had at least 3 people donate scopes to us. And so Tom Jacobs is our properties manager. There he is back there. And we've had some scopes donated to us, and we kind of refurb those as best we can, and we sell them usually for about a half price or so. So that's cheaper that way. We also have a lot of scopes for rent, everything from we have a Celestron Origin. So if you want to go out and try some astrophotography, we have something like that for rent. We have an SCT that's fully a go-to scope that's for rent. We have some push-to scopes for rent. We have lots of stuff out there available. We even have a C-Star S50 for rent. So you don't have quite the money to buy, but you've got $25 to rent something for a few weeks, then go ahead and try the rental pool. We also do training here as well. We have online training on our website here, but we also offer classes on a regular basis throughout the year. And those classes are both a basic telescope class and also a planetary astrophotography class. James, come on down. Next 2 slides are yours, James.
Thanks. So yeah, actually I haven't done the planetary astrophotography one for a little while. So that's not available right now, but the basic telescope operation, the basic beginner's astronomy class, I am gonna start offering. It's going to be on every Tuesday for 5 weeks. And it's 5 Zoom meetings on Tuesdays, and then 4 labs that are out in the field. It's if you don't have a telescope, or you're thinking about buying one, or you have just purchased one and trying to figure out how to use it, this is a perfect class for you. This isn't about concepts in astronomy or stuff like that, which is cool stuff too, but this is about using your telescope and how to get the best out of it. So if you guys are thinking about it, this is a good class for you. We offered it in the spring and thought we would have 1 class, but it ended up we had to have 3 sessions. So it was pretty popular. I'm not sure if it'll be that popular this fall. If you're interested, you should definitely email me quickly. So because we do limit the number of people that can get in on a session, because we want to have someone there to help you out as much as possible. So anyway, if you're interested in that, go to email me and I'll send you the link, or go to my website and you can see all the details and see the class material for that. Okay, so this is a description of it. Like I said, it's going to start October 27th is the first Zoom meeting. And then after that, it'll be every Friday is when the labs are, except for when there is a meeting here, we'll move the lab to Saturday. And then also the reason why we have labs on Friday is because we can fall back on Saturday if the weather's not good on Friday. So that's a basic description of it. I encourage you guys, if you're interested in to take it because it's I think it's very informative. So.
All right, thank you, James. Appreciate that. All right, just a quick note, a little bit early, but this November we have club elections coming up again, and we have some spots opening up. I'm mentioning it now in August. Normally I would do this in September, but we're not going to have a lot of people here in September because we have a star party happening on the same night as this would occur up on the rim. So we're going to lose about 30 people up on the rim for the star party. So I'm mentioning here why we have a little bit larger crowd. So we're going to need a new president because I'm term limited. I've done my 2 years. What was that old Tony Orlando and Dawn song? I've done my time, I'm coming home, whatever, tie yellow ribbon. Okay, anyway, so I've done my time, I've done my 2 years. We might need a vice president. Amanda's still deciding whether she wants to continue on for another year as vice president or not. I hope so. Amanda's done a fantastic job of sourcing speakers for us. So hopefully she continues, but if not, we'll need a vice president. We also have 3 board member slots opening up. So if you have any interest in doing something like that, please let me know. You can email the president at evaconline.org and let me know, and we can talk to you a bit. But we're going to need some folks here coming up. The election is actually in November, and then in January, your term actually starts for a year. So just mentioning that now, because like I said, next week or next month, I think we'll have a little bit fewer people in the room, less people in the room. All right, Alice, you want to make your way up here now? So this will be our little update on the community outreach. This is one of the things that we do as a club. So Alice, take it away.
Thank you, Steve. Before I get into giving back to our community, I would like to draw your attention over to the side of the room there, to that beautiful astronomy booth. I just want to give credit where credit's due. Thank you to Steve Bradshaw for putting all of that together, to our board members, to our members who helped vote on making this happen. It's absolutely beautiful. It will be used for public outreach. Should it be cloudy or overcast, we don't have to cancel for a school. And in fact, for my part, that will be debuting in September for the Multicultural Apache Junction Center. They're having a huge science event and have requested something like that. So we can show that off. So thank you, Steve. It's beautiful. And thank you to everyone who helped with that as well. So our charter, giving back. So as a club member, I think one of the coolest things is giving back to our community. Personally, I think that giving of your time and your talent is the most amazing thing that you could give. So how do we do that? And here we go. First is just down the sidewalk down here, and that's Greco. We are there every Friday, Saturday night, obviously weather permitting. Our members volunteer there. If you're interested in volunteering, contact, it would be Claude, and right there on the screen, Greco at evaconline.org, and Claude would be happy to instruct you on what is available, what you're interested in doing. There's usually 2 options. You could become an operator of the telescope, or you're usually outside greeting the people who are coming, the guests, educating, entertaining, and keeping track of how many people show up. So there's your first opportunity to give back and share your love of astronomy. Your second is what I'm in charge of, and that is our public outreach. So what does that entail? It entails giving of your time and of your talent. If you have a telescope and you feel comfortable bringing it and sharing it with the schools or libraries or community centers or HOAs, you would bring your telescope to the event, have an idea of an object that you would want to view for that night, and just share that with the guests who come up to view. Now, let's say you're you don't want to bring your telescope to a public event, or you're just, a little leery of it. That's fine. I can also use people as helpers. We also call them walkers, to help remind guests of telescope etiquette, check in with our astronomers, make sure they're doing okay. Maybe they need a bathroom break, and you can watch the telescope while they go use the restroom, or check and see if they need water nowadays in this heat. So we have two different ways that you can volunteer: bring a telescope or binoculars as well. We've had a couple of volunteers use binoculars and guests have loved that, or come as a helper. All right, how do you do that? Right there on the website, be sure to sign up at the freelist.org and EVAC outreach. I do all of our communications via email. I will usually send out one email at the end of the month, kind of letting you know what is coming up for the following month. I usually send out reminders the day before an event, so you're reminded where it's at, what time, and a bit more detail of how to get there, where the location for setup is. And then if there's any cancellations or change in location, I will also email you that too. So it's very important to sign up for that as well. All right. So I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our outreach volunteers. You guys are an amazing group of people. It has been extremely hot and humid the past 2 months. We had 12 telescopes at our last Second Friday Star Party last week. It again was hot and humid, but look at the crew that showed up. I also had binoculars as well there, one set of binoculars. And Greco had about, I want to say 150 some people, which means that we had 150 people viewing through our telescopes out on the lawn there. So thank you guys for showing up. I say we sweated under the stars that night, had a great time. And then this was this week's star party. Now, unfortunately, we got a little, I don't want to say rained out, but weathered out. Again, thank you to all of our volunteers who showed up. I was hoping that the wind would go away and that the clouds would blow out, but the exact opposite happened. We waited till the last possible moment, but it didn't happen, but we still had a great time, obviously, you can see. Upcoming star parties. All right, so next month, again, it's summertime. We have our Second Friday Star Party coming up. And then we also have, it's gonna be September 20th. It's a Saturday. This is not normally what we do is Saturdays, but we've been doing this event for the Multi-Generational Center of Apache Junction for quite some time now. They're doing a mad science event. So we're going to have that. That's on September 20th. And again, all this is at events and meetings on our website. But October, that's when it's going to get busy. I actually have 6 star parties booked for October. So plenty of opportunities to come and volunteer your time and talent and inspire who knows who in astronomy. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to come and see me during the break or after the meeting. I'm happy to answer them. Yes, Dave. Yeah, look on events and meetings on our website.
It's the 12th.
It is the 12th, yeah.
All right. And by the way, we'll have to kind of play the September 12th Second Friday Star Party by ear. If you have not been over to the Dome here in the last few days, the entire grass area in front of the Dome has been fenced off. The park is widening a sidewalk over there. And so that Second Friday Star Party might get canceled. It might get moved. We're going to kind of see what we need to do as the week approaches. But yeah, it's all fenced off over there right now. You can't even get onto the grass the way it is right now. So anyway, we'll let you know, or Alice will let you know kind of the status of that as the date gets closer. James, you're back up again. You got about 5 slides here to talk about.
So as Steve mentioned that we have a star party coming up in September up at the Hyman Ranch. So I was thinking about other things that we could possibly do. I don't know how many people were here. Was it last month they talked about that place over in southern Arizona? Yeah, so that got me thinking about a place that I used to go to. Me and my wife had gone to birding, which is called the Southwest Research Station. It's over by Portal, which is southeast Arizona, in the middle of nowhere. It's Bortle 2 skies, very dark. And the neat thing about that station is that the room and board's pretty reasonable. And they cook for you the 3 meals a day, and I'll show you the prices on that. So I was thinking that might be a nice place to go maybe in the springtime. So if you're interested in it, email me, or if I've got cards, you're welcome to grab my card if you don't have my email address. I might also send out a email to people to see what the interest is on it, and maybe look at doing that possibly. So the dates we were tentatively thinking about is maybe the 13th through the 19th is maybe a window of opportunity in April. It'd probably be a 3-night star party. It's out in the middle of nowhere, so it's like a 5-hour drive from here. It's a long drive, so you want to stay out there probably. There's other places to stay besides the research station. It's like I said, this is well-known place for birding. It's world renowned actually. The particular place that we're trying to get is no pets allowed, no cell phone coverage. Drive time is given there. There's a location and so forth. The room and board, there's 9 standard rooms, and they're just basically one little rooms with a microwave and a bathroom, $115 per adult. They also have apartments, and there's a pricing there for those, $190 for single. I can't remember what it is for double. And then there's also, they have dorms there that is only $100 per person, and they've got 22 rooms in the dorms. So this is a research facility for the most part, but they also opened it up to the public. So it's basically, once we get the number of people, we'll have to, as soon as the reservations open, which is in November, we have to call them up and make those reservations. And like I said, the meals are all provided. They got a nice cafeteria. There's a nice big field out there. So although, you know, there are mountains around, the sky is still pretty open and everything, and it's very dark. So something to think about. Like I said, I'll send out some email and try to get a feel for how many people might be interested in it. And then if you're not staying there, you can even have meals there, and breakfast $10, lunch $12, and so forth. So, and I guess that's it for that one.
By the way, I Steve, oh, you're Steve here? There we go. Okay, Steve, one of the other members and I just last week were camping down there at Chiricahua at Portal, and skies are very dark except when it's a full moon. Then once the full moon comes, they'll have a street light overhead. But yeah, it's a very just beautiful canyon area. The dramatic rock formations. It's just a wonderful place. So anyway, Steve and I had a good time. Other than the fact, it was 104 every day, and I've never sweat that hard for so long in my life. So anyway, we figured out we were drinking about 2.5 gallons of water a day to stay hydrated down there. So it's pretty warm. But anyway, we had a good time. So anyway, hopefully that. So we have 2 member presentations tonight. I told James not to go far because his is actually the first one. He's going to talk about this photon cannon here is what he's going to talk about. So James, you want to go on up and you can start clicking through.
Sorry, you guys are probably getting sick of me tonight. So I wanted to present something that project that I recently did. This is actually a pair of binoculars. This is a 3D printed binoculars that I purchased the kit from this website called Analog Sky, and that guy actually might do a presentation sometime later on. They've got some really interesting projects they got going on. This is an 80mm binocular. You can see this 2 things here. The focal length is 400mm. It's an 80mm binocular. Eyepieces go here. Most binoculars have set eyepieces. Well, that's one thing that's kind of nice about it is you can put your own eyepieces in here. This is a zoom lens, so I can actually zoom in and out. It supports 2-inch and 1.25-inch eyepieces. What else is it? It weighs 10 pounds. And the other nice feature about it that I like is you look down as opposed to having to look through. So there's a number of nice features about it. Like I said, I 3D printed out most of the components. So like these are glow in the dark. Another thing that I added onto it that doesn't come standard was I designed something to hold filters, because this actually has a feature that you can plot filters in here if you want to put filters in. So you can put sky glow filters or nebula filters right in there. So So it's a really neat, innovative design. And I just think it's one of the best things this company's ever done. So the eyepieces that I've got for mine is I got a cheap pair of Super Plossals, which was $65 each. Now these are more expensive. These are the Hyperon Mark IV Baidier, more expensive eyepieces. These run like $400 each. So that would be expensive part, but you don't have to spend that much on an eyepiece, right? Because those eyepieces are as much as I paid for the rest of the telescope. So anyway, that's just one feature. The nice thing about it though is you can go from a 50 magnification to 16.7 just by twisting the eyepiece on there. The website that I got this off of was Analog Sky. They sell a number of different products. I'm not their salesperson, but Magic Binoculars, which is 50 millimeter version, which is kind of nice little ones. The Heart Binoculars, which is what this is. Then there's the one for solar viewing and so forth. They're also working on another one that's an 8-inch binoculars, which will be interesting when they come out with that. So the kit, you can either buy just the basic kit and 3D print the parts yourself. And if you buy the basic kit, which is the metal part here, the lenses, there's also a diagonal. I left this open so you can see there's 2 diagonals that go in there. So they send you a box with all the hardware and screws and bolts. Then you print out the rest of the parts and then you put it together. Personally, if I were to do this again, I would spend the $1,000. It's an extra $300 to get them to print out the 3D parts and just have it all come to you and you assemble it. And the reason being is because it was 3 weeks of printing nonstop. And my wife was like, when are you going to finish that thing? And what is it? I wouldn't tell her what I was doing. As I started assembling it, she says, it looks like a pasta maker. So that's what this is, a pasta maker. So I would buy, and there's also issues with 3D printing it yourself because some of the parts didn't quite fit as well as they should have, and it's probably because my printer wasn't to specs. So what I would do if I was to do it again, I'd buy the entire kit, and then I would 3D print the parts that I wanted to customize. Like if I wanted the handle to be glow in the dark, then I would print out my own handle and replace that with what I have here. I can't remember if I told you guys about the features, but yeah, I did tell you about the filters. That's another unique filter or unique feature about these binoculars, which most binoculars don't support filters. The other real neat thing about it, if you look back there, or up here on the wall, it's got a built-in laser that you can put on it. It's right up here shooting on the ceiling here. So you can see where you're looking at. I always like the lasers, everybody knows that. So like I said, if you buy the kit that I did was $700 plus printing it out, just buy the $1,000 kit. It's really nice because it has videos that instruct you how to do every single step. So again, benefits, it's 90 degrees, multiple eyepiece operation or options, so put in whatever magnification you want. You have different mounting options. So this is for a camera tripod here, but I've got this also on here. So I can put this on my Evolution mount, and it's a go-to mount, so I can just type in where I want it to go, and it'll go there. What else? Collimation is, done back here. You can do that yourself, and there's horizontal and vertical adjustments you can do to adjust it for your own eyes. And you can actually even, this screw here, you can turn this and it'll separate or bring the eyepieces together closer or further apart. And if for some reason I had to drop it or something broke, I could always print out the extra part and fix it up. So, and again, you can do your own custom colors. So, yeah, I'm tickled pink with it. I've used it a couple times and I'm quite happy with it. Matter of fact, I'm going to take it out to Picket Post weather meeting tomorrow night. You guys are welcome to come out there. The challenging parts is you got to print your own parts. Took 3 weeks, like I said. Some of the parts did not fit quite right, and that was really a pain in the butt. The ones that didn't, some of them are key that they fit right. So again, easier if you just buy the kit already with the printed parts. That diagonal assembly was the hardest part for me. You have to get this mirror exactly lined up properly with the screws. And there's a jig, it's what it's called, to line those up. And for some reason, I could not get that jig to work properly. And I think it's because of the way you print out your own jig. And I think it was the printing. but I'm not positive. So that's the most challenging part on this. And also, he's a great guy that owns a company and he does some great things, but I think he's overloaded. So his response time isn't great if you have problems. So don't expect an immediate response time if you're having issues. I mean, if it's just getting the kit and working with it, you're good. But yeah, he can be not so great with the response time. But again, he's a super nice guy when he does respond and everything. It's just that I think he's a little over his head right now as far as volume going on. So what else is there? Here's the jig kit. So this is what I was talking about where I had the problem. The other thing that I would change is, you know, they send you this kit and it has the lenses and the diagonal in there. The first thing I would do is there's this polymer you can put on top of mirrors and stuff that will protect it. I would put that polymer, it's fairly expensive, but it's well worth it. What you do is it's a liquid, you put it on top of the surface, and then and it protects that so you can handle it all you want, not worry about getting silicone on it or fingerprints or anything like that. And then once you get it assembled like you want it, then you just peel off the polymer. It goes on as a liquid, dries, and then it just peels off. It's wonderful stuff. So I would have used that if I were to do that again, because you handle this diagonal a lot and you can get fingerprints or scratch it up easily. And I guess that's it. Unless, should I take questions or?
Can you explain why the both optical tubes are kind of offset?
I knew that was coming because I don't know the answer. But I can tell you part of the reason is because he wanted to get it compressed down further. What I don't understand is you can see the lens is up here, different places. Somehow the focal length is the same. So maybe the mirrors aren't exactly the same or the diagonal or something. I know the diagonals are different sizes. So it's just to make them so your eyes can, you know, if they were apart like this, your eyes wouldn't be able to get to it. So he had to squish them together so your eyes will meet the eyepieces. But as far as what the magic that he works in here and the optics, I'm not sure what he did there. Well, thank you.
All right, we have a second member presentation tonight. It's Nathan Esky, who's walking up here right now. He's going to talk a little bit about that eVscope 2. So when we purchased that a few months back for public outreach, Nathan said, put his hand up and volunteered and said, hey, I'll learn how to use it and I'll bring it to all the events and whatnot. So he's been playing with it for a few months and has some thoughts about it. So anyway, he's going to share that now.
Yeah, you gave Steve permission to buy it in May, and he didn't wait very long to pick it up. So he grabbed this in June, and we've been playing with it since then. So for those of you that weren't in those meetings, this is the Unistellar eVscope 2. It's an astrograph, but it has an eyepiece. So think of the famous C-Star S50. It's very similar. This is just bigger, and it has a visual aspect as well. And this telescope is not part of our rental program. We're using it strictly for public outreach. But that being said, if you want to come to our star parties and use it, you're more than welcome. So this is, when I first heard about it, I would say this is the gimmick. But having used this at public outreach, this is the star. So you have this is images provided by Unistellar. On the left there, you have kind of what you would see with a standard eyepiece. Not sure what nebula this is, maybe the Eagle, thank you. So you have like visual telescopes, you'll see a very gray, kind of like gas cloud type of deal. The Unistellar, because it's taking images and stacking them, you're able to actually see through the eyepiece the nebula itself. For those interested in stats, I have those listed here. Quickly talk about some of the key features. There's enhanced vision. It's AI saturation, and I have some images on that too. There are citizen science applications, which are pretty cool, and I'll discuss those a little bit later. Has a friendly app control, and actually using the app is easy, and of course the integrated eyepiece. One thing that I'll call out is it does have a limited database. So we have about 5,000 celestial objects, and you think that'd be a lot, but it's actually not, and I'll cover that a little bit later as well. So this I'm not joking when I say this is a star. It is amazing for public outreach. The instant gratification that people get when they look through this, it's not just oohs and ahs, it's, oh my God, and is that real? Like the reaction that we're getting from the public is outstanding. A lot of people that come see this, they say, this was my favorite one in the star party. We are, in the center of Gilbert. We're in Apache Junction underneath like a street lamp, and yet we're still able to get great pictures. It's a very shareable experience because of that eyepiece, so you're not just looking at a tablet, but it is controlled via that. So if there's a crowd, you can walk around and with your cell phone or iPad and say, this is what we're looking at tonight. And it's a fantastic educational tool. Some cons, and I'll say that these are more just me trying to think of something bad to say. From a public outreach perspective, one of the things I worry about is we're giving an unrealistic expectation of what people will see when they go buy their telescopes. So if you're not getting an astrograph and you're just getting a visual telescope and you take it home, you're going to be disappointed when you look at some nebulas. So we try to make that clear when people are looking through the telescope that it is a camera that they're looking at and a generated image. And then the less direct experience is you're not physically getting that photon that was emitted 25 million years ago hitting your eye. You're looking at a screen. All right, so the first night that Steve and I were able to take this out at one of our star parties, these are the first images that we achieved. And this is literally under a street lamp, and we're just kind of looking off to the side. So we have the Ring Nebula and the Whirlpool Galaxy. So this is pretty close to what you see in the eyepiece. And then just being able to test it out, I can show you some new or some other images. So we have the sun and the moon. I think the moon looks pretty good from the kind of entire globe perspective, but it gets a little blurry or fuzzy when you zoom into it. For some galaxies, we have 106 and M65. I think these turned out pretty good. And then for nebulas, we have the Owl Nebula, and then we have a globular cluster. I don't know if you can make it out, but at the bottom here, Unistellar does provide the time it takes to acquire an image. And I chose the nebula, the Owl Nebula, because it's relatively dim. And so that one took a little over an hour to generate that photo. Now let's talk about the AI mode, or what Unistellar calls enhanced vision. So this is only a 10-minute acquisition. And so on the left, we have the Omega Nebula that you see through the eyepiece. And then when you turn on the AI or enhanced vision, you kind of get the color pop out. I tend to not leave AI on because to me, this is more of a Hubble or web image versus something that you might really see with an eyepiece. And in the next example, you can see with the Lagoon Nebula that when you turn on AI mode, it likes to make very bright blue stars. Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little about citizen science. So we have not done this yet, but part of the Unistellar app is kind of signing into more of an ecosystem that Unistellar provides. And so because everyone has the same telescope, they have the same focal length, the same camera, it can be used to acquire data that can be used, in this case, by SETI. So there's potential that we could have events focused around transits, occultations. I like the phrase that Unistellar provided of cataclysmic events. So that's not in our neighborhood. And then planetary defense, trying to find some more asteroids and some satellite tracking. And this is all done via the app. So you just set up your telescope and you just navigate to that part of the screen. And speaking about the app, I want to show you, let's see if I can get the arrow. No, okay, I'll point. So I want to show you how easy it is to use the scope. So each one of these screens are going to be different after you clicks. So when you open up the Unistellar app, you just click the connect button. Then you will automatically see our telescope. I added EVAC to the Wi-Fi. Then you will just click join, and then you are connected to the telescope. So you do not have to manually connect via Wi-Fi first. You don't have to connect via Bluetooth or any of that. It's really that simple. And this also goes to the public too. So if someone is connected and controlling the telescope, they can download the Unistellar app and view what you're viewing through the telescope. Now let's talk about plate solving. So it's pretty simple as well. You just hit the watch button, telescope orientation, It takes maybe 15 seconds and your orientation is successful. For this, I will say that it does require a little bit of a darker sky. So when we're out here at our second Friday star party, I'm still sitting in my chair while everyone else is working on their telescopes, like the visuals, the C-Star, all those can plate solve really well. The Unistellar, while it does it pretty fast, it does take a little bit of a darker sky. All right, now let's talk about how to find an object. So back on the main screen, all you have to do is click watch. You are then presented with a list of objects. The ones that have pictures are things that you personally have viewed. So if you don't have a picture for M5, that means you as an individual on your app have not seen it yet. So you just click on whatever you want, hit go to, and it will take you there. And then finally, the viewing experience. So once you're at your destination, it'll say go to validated. You hit this nice little star button and it starts acquiring the data. And then you are provided with the images. This is what you're able to get on your phone. This was me taking a picture with my phone through the eyepiece, trying to get that. Didn't turn out too well. And then Steve commented our zenith position. This is its parked mode. And so it wants to be in that mode when you're done. So there is a turn off procedure, in which case you hit these buttons and hit park. And that's how you turn it off and put it away. So relatively super easy. And if any of you want to try it, please come to our public star parties. All right, so now let me be a negative Nancy. A lot of people that view this telescope are shocked, they're amazed, and they're like, can I get this on Amazon? I'm like, yeah, you can. How much is it? $4,000 to $5,000 if you get it on sale. And I have a little concern about people that want to buy it for personal use. So I think it's amazing for public outreach, but for personal, I just want to throw things out there. So for the cost, there's a lot of different options that you can do. You could even get what I would say a real astronomy rig. I already mentioned the observing universe. So the pasta maker, I don't know where it went. That is so customizable. You can 3D print, you can attach. With the Unistellar, that is what you get. There's no well, there are accessories, but you have to buy them through Unistellar. The website claims, and I say it's a claim, that you can download the individual files. I have tried 4 different times and I've been unsuccessful. So it's technically possible. I tried with an Apple computer and a Windows 11 computer and was not able to download the individual files for processing. Target audience, Wi-Fi distance. You do have to control it with a Wi-Fi device. And I would say if you're more than 10 feet away, you're pushing your luck. If you're 15 feet away, you'll probably start losing connection. And then it has a limited catalog of objects. And for me, this is its biggest downside. When we're at public events, I can pick the Whirlpool Galaxy or the Mega Nebula every night and go through the entire crowd, and it's not a big deal. But when you're using it for personally, you're gonna want to explore the sky. And so when I was out there a couple weeks ago, I'm like, oh, let's pick something new. Let's try the Blue Horsehead Nebula. And I couldn't find it in the app. And so I've had a lot of experiences where I want to view something, or even if you go through the EVACS observing programs, this telescope will not be able to go through that full list. And makes it worse for me is that there's no way for you to manually enter an RA and declination. So you're kind of stuck with the catalog or the objects that it gives you. And to be even more negative, comparison is the thief of joy. So what are we going to do next? We're going to compare it to a similar price telescope. This is the Celestron Origin. So on the left, we have the eVscope, and over here we have the Origin. Both of these are 0 processing, so nothing in the app or on my phone. This is just straight from those telescopes. From my perspective, the Origin does better colors on the galaxy here. And then if we go to the Ring Nebula, I most certainly oversaturated it. I imaged it for too long, but I just love the star field that you're able to get. And then if we look at a globular cluster, for me, the celestron origin gives me a little bit better of a detail. Now, that being said, it doesn't have an eyepiece. So let's be fair and compare it to my personal 8-inch SCT. I have a Evolution. And so you might think it's dust, but that is the Ring Nebula on my telescope. So final thoughts, let's bring it back to the positive. It is absolutely incredible for public outreach. I really can't understate that. So I want to thank the president, the board, as well as this club for making it possible. I think, what Alice has stated many times, part of our Constitution is giving back to the community, and I think this telescope does it in spades. So I have it right here at the break. If you want to ask me any more questions about it, we certainly can. I don't know about doing it after tonight's club party, but if there's enough people that want to do it, I can certainly take it out and set it up. It's always going to be at the Greco second party, Friday star parties. And like I said, this isn't rentable, but if you come to those star parties and you want to use it, you can. And if you want to volunteer on going to the star parties, then you too can use that on an ongoing basis. But if you want to use the celestron origin, that is part of our rental program. And you can talk to Tom Jacobs or use the website to rent that. So that is my presentation. Are there any questions or, yeah?
Actually, I have two questions. You showed a picture of a sun picture. So does that have built-in solar filters?
Not built in, but it does come with the accessory for you to put a solar filter on top of the optical tube.
HA and,
No, it's just a aluminum filter.
Oh, okay. And the other question is, do you have to have internet for it to plate solve and go to and stuff, or can you take this out the dark skies and be nowhere near civilization?
Yeah, I took it to Picket Post, which doesn't have great cellular service, and it worked there. I can't tell you for sure that I didn't have cell phone at the time, but I'm pretty sure you can.
I think it's its own hotspot, right? It has its own hotspot built in, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't need the internet to do that because it's the phone that does it. Because that's, I think, how the origin works also. Just to add on to what he said about this, he didn't mention how easy these things are. Maybe he did. How easy these things are to set up. You just set it down, level it, and tell it to go. And it's the same with the origin. You set it down, level it, and put it, think horizontal, and tell it to go, and it will take care of itself. It's only $25 a week to rent that origin. Yeah, you should try it out if you haven't tried it because it's pretty amazing.
And just since you brought it up, the eVscope is you point at it, you look at it, you take a picture, you move on. The origin, you can make a schedule and have it do it automatically. So you can say, do this for 2 hours, do this for 30 minutes, and it does it smoothly. Yeah. Anything else right here? We'll get a microphone over to you for the people on Zoom.
I'm sure this is a silly question, but what does EV stand for?
It's not, and I don't know. I can make it. I can make something up, but honestly, I don't know the answer. It's not electric vehicle. Maybe something. Yeah.
Okay.
But the two at the end references the eyepiece. So there is a first model, the eVscope that they do sell. That does not include the eyepiece. If you want the eyepiece, you need to get the eVscope 2. Anything else? Anybody? Oh, okay. So it uses GPS. You don't need internet. Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Hey, tonight we have back again. He was there earlier this year. We have Mark Johnston here with us. He's a NASA Solar System Ambassador, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about some of the observatories down in Chile in the Atacama Desert area. Okay. So anyway, let's welcome Mark back to talk to us again.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Steve. So I'm going to be, let me just find the presentation here. Before I get started, On the table on the left with all the clothing, I brought some trading cards for Mars rovers. There's 4 different rovers on different cards. So if you're interested yourself, or you've got kids, or nieces or nephews or grandchildren or whatever, and you think might be interested, those are free. You can grab a set of those if you want after the talk. So, all right, I'm going to do something a little bit different that I haven't done before tonight. If I can find this. So what I did, I had an opportunity to travel to Chile in late June of this year, and I was there for about 2 weeks and visited some of the top observatories in the world down there. So let me minimize this. Okay, and so I'm going to be showing video of my trip, and I went down, so, you know, these observatories are some of the largest observatories in the world. By 2040, 80% of the large observatories on the planet will be in Chile. I'll talk about why that is in a minute. And these are all places that I visited there, and I'll talk about each of them in more detail. So I went there under the ACEAP program. That's the Ambassador to Chile Educational Astronomy Program. And it's run by the National Science Foundation. And every year they take 10 people that are selected from around the world. And I was fortunate to be one of the ones selected. And there's you can see it there. So the website shown on the bottom here is the one that was there a moment ago, is the one you want to use to find it, astroambassadors.com. And this program takes people that are, in my case, you know, outreach and science educators, amateur astronomers, people who work at observatories, STEM educators like high school physics teachers and astronomy teachers, people like that. And they get selected and get to go down to Chile. And this page kind of explains some of the acronyms I'll be talking about. So the National Science Foundation provides all the funding. Then there are 2 large groups. There's AURA, which is the Association of Universities for Research in Astronomy, and they manage all of the ground and space-based optical observatories. And then there's AUI, and they manage all the radio telescopes. And so the radio telescopes would be like ALMA, where I went, as well as the very large array in New Mexico, Green Bank, and some other ones. And on the other side, the left side, you've got the space-based telescopes. I didn't visit the James Webb, in case you're wondering, but I did see Gemini South and the CTIO telescopes. There's quite a few there, Vera Rubin and SOAR and some other ones in Chile. They also run Kitt Peak, but of course I wasn't at Kitt Peak while I was in Chile. So ACAP is a cooperation between the WAR Lab and the NRAO, and they put together the strategy to invite people to come down and see these observatories in Chile. And it's a tremendous opportunity. I was very honored to be selected. I say only 10 people a year go down there. So this isn't the route I took, of course, but this is what the PowerPoint shows. So we went to Santiago and arrived there. We had a group meeting of the 10 of us there around dinner. And then we went to the AUI NSF offices in Santiago. And basically the first half a day was a preview of the trip, where we're going to be going. There were some activities at the front end and the back end of the trip that were not astronomy related. So cultural activities, and we went to see a flamingo preserve and some other things, but I'm not going to talk about those. We'll just talk about this. So let's talk about why Chile. So you might say, well, look, we've got some great mountain ranges here in America. Why not put an observatory in Colorado? Well, has anybody ever flown into Denver before? Okay, so very bumpy. So in Chile, you've got these cold waters from Antarctica coming up the left side of South America, and it makes the air very still along the country. So they have 330 clear nights a year, and it's also very, very dark. There's no bright city lights nearby. They have a lot of controls on lighting in the country, which is super important. They've got very steady atmosphere, good seeing, an astronomical term. Also, this is the Atacama Desert. It's very dry, very little water vapor. It's extremely important, especially for radio telescopes. We'll cover that later. They've also got low labor and materials costs. So if you are, let me pause that. So if you're going to build $1 billion telescope, it's pretty important to have inexpensive labor and material. They've also got great infrastructure. They've got good roads. They've got the highest speed internet in South America. And they also have a very stable political climate. So again, you want to invest $1 billion. You don't want to have the government change and they capriciously decide they're going to take over the telescope from you. So it's a great place for astronomy for all those reasons. So this is a picture of the airplane as we're flying over the Andes. And our first stop was La Serena. That was our hotel, a very nice hotel we stayed in. We went to the Alpha Alpina Observatory. This one is a commercial business. This is one you can go to yourself. In the distance, you can see Vera Rubin Telescope and Gemini South. We're going to be going there the next day. And this observatory was the first opportunity that we had to see dark skies in South America. And for a lot of people in the group, it was their first opportunity. I've seen dark skies plenty of times down there. Let me pause this for a second. I've seen dark skies down there plenty of times, but for a lot of people, they'd never seen Alpha Centauri, they'd never seen the Southern Cross and the Coal Sack and Eta Carina, some of the really bright things that are naked eye you can see down there. So this is a photograph that I took from that site. And one thing that's really cool is not related to Chile, but in Australia, the Aborigines see an emu in the sky, and I'll show that momentarily here. And so they see the sky, the Milky Way, and the southern is crossing out, showing an emu. So here's the emu in the sky, which is sort of cool. And we also heard from local people that they see llamas and things like that in the sky down there as well. Anyway, then you drive, and at this point, everything from here on is invite only. So we first went to Sierra Pachon, and you can see the elevation on my phone told me there, about 9,000 feet. And we started at the Gemini Observatory, and we got access to everything inside the control rooms, the engineers, scientists, astronomers. We saw it all. So Gemini is an amazing telescope. It has an 8.1 meter mirror, and it's part of the Gemini system. There's a Gemini North in the Big Island of Hawaii. In fact, you'll see in a moment there's the clock that shows Hilo time. There it is, Hilo time and La Serena time. Got the two telescopes there. And there's a picture of the mirror. They moved the telescope for us. We get a nice picture of the mirror, which is pretty cool. The mirror is coated in silver. They do that because silver is better for reflecting infrared wavelengths than aluminum. So you'll find another telescope we look at later is coated in aluminum, and that's because it reflects UV light better than silver does. So it depends on the application. All of the big telescopes now are on alt-az mounts, not equatorial mounts. And they do that because alt-az mounts are lighter, they're cheaper, they're stronger, they're faster to put together, and they're equally precise to an equatorial mount. They handle field rotation issues by putting a rotator on the optical package, the camera, or the spectroscope. And here's some information on the silver coatings. They recoat the mirror every 6 years there. We did go to this is the control room for Gemini, and it's actually controlled from La Serena, from the town that's about a 2-hour drive away. So the astronomers live down there, and they remotely control the telescope from there. Other telescopes you'll see are controlled from the mountain. The telescope has got this kind of a weird thing on the side. You can see, let me talk about the adaptive optics first. So here's a picture of a rock I threw in my pool. You see how the rock is all distorted from the ripples on the water. Well, the same thing happens when you look up into the sky at night. You see the twinkling stars. I mean, they're very romantic, but it actually sucks for telescopes because you want the stars to be steady. And so the reason you put telescopes up on mountaintops is to get above as much air as possible. But the other way you can solve problems with turbulence is with adaptive optics. So the Gemini has got a 20-watt yellow-orange laser, and this creates an artificial star in the sky. This is the actual laser cavity right there. And then the image I'm showing here is the path of the laser. All the little black boxes you see are mirrors, and it goes up that tall tube there, and then turns right and goes somewhere else, and finally goes out the top. There's one of the actuators for the adaptive optics. So what happens is the artificial star is in the sky. The computer looks at the artificial star and detects how much turbulence and wavering there is in the sky. And then when it does that, let me stop it here. I'm getting ahead of myself. When it detects the turbulence, it then computes what deformation of the mirror is required to compensate for the turbulence that it's seeing at that instant in the sky. And then it sends commands to the hundreds of actuators under the mirror, and they can move up to 2.8 millimeters up and down. And that changes the shape of the mirror, which compensates for the distortion in the atmosphere at that instant. It's really amazing technology. So the native resolution of the telescope is 260 milliarc seconds. But when they put the adaptive optics on, that gets down to 60 milliarc seconds. And then if they look in the infrared, they can get to 40 milliarc seconds, which is phenomenal resolution for a telescope that's 8 meters in diameter. So that's kind of how the adaptive optics works. You'll find out later that the Vera Rubin doesn't use this technology, uses something else. They have shutters on the side of the telescope. You can see them here. And the reason they have them there is that helps prevent tube currents inside the, dome currents inside the dome. They want the air to get the same temperature as the outside as fast as possible. So these giant shutters open up. They open them for us so we could take a look out when we were inside. But they that keeps the air stable on the same temperature as would be if you were on the other side. Okay, so that was Gemini. And then I think next we're going to get to SOAR. So this is Gemini again. You can see Vera Rubin in the distance. And then about 200 meters down the road is another telescope called SOAR, and that's the Southern Astrophysical Research Telescope. And okay, actually, I'm doing a bit more on on Gemini. Let me see here. What other data I've got on that? Oh yeah. So the focus of Gemini is finished on Gemini first. It's got about a 1/6 of a moon diameter field of view. So it's a very small field of view and very high resolution. So it's looking at small things. It's looking at exoplanets. It's looking at galaxies. It's looking at globular clusters, black holes. It was part of the Black Hole Event Telescope collaboration. And it also is used for looking at transient objects. So a wide field scope like Vera Rubin will find something like a supernova or a near-Earth asteroid or the Atlas one that was just discovered recently. And then Gemini can zoom in and look at it in tremendous detail, which is a great complement to the other telescope design. It's got a focal ratio of f/16. So now we're on the SOAR telescope. This is a 4.2 meter telescope. This one is controlled from the control room there. So astronomers actually work in the telescope dome and decide what they're going to do there. This also has adaptive optics. You can see the actuators on the bottom of the telescope that move it up and down to control the resolution of the telescope. This one has got a native resolution of 300 milliarc seconds and can get down to 30 milliarc seconds when it's looking at a small field of view. This one generally uses a spectroscope. So they don't use a lot of images with this telescope. So whereas with Gemini, it does both visual and spectroscopy, the SOAR telescope focuses on spectroscopy only. That's kind of what it works on. And it's also got a fairly wide field of view. Okay. Let's see here, one half degree field of view, about the size of the full moon. It's got a real-time magnitude of +20. And you may notice in a moment, you're going to see a big white circle on the side. There it is. That's a flats panel. So anybody that's into astrophotography know you need to take flats. And I was surprised to see that all these observatories had gigantic white discs on the inside of the wall, and they use those to take flats, which is, I think, pretty cool. So then we went to Vera Rubin, and we were really fortunate because you probably have seen a lot of the, and I'll show some of them here in a minute, some photographs taken by Vera Rubin in early July. And we were there about 3 days after those photographs were released. We were the first people to visit Vera Rubin since it was officially opened. So that was pretty cool. The building is really neat looking. You can see the shape of the building is very unusual. And it's designed like that to optimize laminar airflow. So as air flows up the mountain, they did a lot of modeling, and the shape of that, that building makes the seeing optimal at the telescope, which is pretty cool. You'll see the telescope looks really short and squat. It's an f1.2. So for those of you who are into telescopes, that's a really fast telescope. That's why it's so short, a very short distance. It's on an Altaz mount. There's the flats panel there. They're rotating it around for us so we can take a look at the mirror. It's got an 8.4 meter mirror, and I'll talk about why it's 8.4 meters in a moment. There's a very specific reason for that. It also has the world's largest digital camera, 3.2 gigapixels. The field of view is equal to about 40 full moons. And this is a control room. So from here, they decide which objects they're going to look at that night. And they could take into consideration the weather and the phase of the moon and the seeing conditions and things like that. The native resolution of Vera Rubin is well, about plus 24 limiting magnitude. It's got a silver coating on the mirror, about a 0.5 arc-second resolution. Not as good as other telescopes because this uses, well, let me talk about this tunnel. First of all, this tunnel is important. Hang on a minute, let me stop this before we go too far. So we passed through this tunnel several times, and it turns out this tunnel is in between the ocean where the ships would come in with the mirror and the mountains where the telescopes are put up. So any mirror has to go through this tunnel. And this tunnel basically limited the size of the Vera Rubin mirror. So when they put the 8.4 meter mirror through this tunnel, there was 10 centimeters of clearance on the side of the tunnel. And you can imagine how careful that was, right? Yeah, so that was the limiting factor for the mirror on the telescope. This telescope uses active optics, which is something that I didn't know about until I got there. So there's a difference between adaptive optics and active optics. So active optics is where you have a really wide field of view. And when we use the adaptive optics, remember we had that laser beam and you're looking at a really narrow spot in space. Well, seeing varies tremendously over a wide field of view. So adaptive optics can't work when you've got a 40 full moon radius image. This is the first image it took of 10 million galaxies at one time. And so they use active optics. So they still have actuators at the bottom of the mirror, but they're for low frequency changes like changes in gravity as the giant mirror moves left to right or up and down, mechanical changes, stresses, things like that. The idea is to keep the mirror at the perfect shape and not try to do the adaptive optics. So you don't get the same quality of improvement in resolution that you do with adaptive optics, but you do get a good quality image. The Gemini is about 1,200 times smaller field of view than Vera Rubin. Now this little telescope here, I forget the name of it now, but it's a calibration telescope. It's right beside Vera Rubin. It's 1.2 meters. And the small telescope takes a picture of the sky at the same time as Vera Rubin every night. And it knows exactly what the colors should be of the bright stars like Archingar and Canopus and the southern stars. And then using that calibration data, they can make sure the colors on Vera Rubin are perfect when they do the Vera Rubin exposures. So this is one of the pictures that Vera Rubin took. Again, in the first picture it captured 10,000 galaxies at 10 million galaxies in the first photograph, which is pretty amazing. Now, something else which is interesting is it is not the Vera Rubin telescope. It is the Simony telescope. So Charles Simony is the person that kicked off the project, and he donated about $15 million to fund the casting of the mirror. And so as a result, the telescope was named after him, but the observatory is named after a famous female astronomer, Vera Rubin. But the telescope is not named after Vera Rubin. So that was kind of interesting. So the data from the Vera Rubin Observatory is going to be made available to the public. So all of us, any citizen scientists or astronomers, amateur astronomers, can get access to the data. You can sign up for alerts from Rubin. I'll show this. It'll appear in a moment on the video what the website is for that. And they generate 10 million alerts per night. So you might not want to sign up for every one. Okay, then you can specify filters for what you want for the alerts, but you can download data from Vera Rubin and see it yourself. This is Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid with phenomenal detail. And there's the moon showing the field of view of a photograph. It has the world's largest digital camera. It's got a 3.2 gigapixel camera made by Stanford Linear Accelerator Lab folks. And that allows it to give this gigantic field of view with incredible resolution. So what it's going to do is going to map the entire southern sky that it can see 825 times over 10 years, and then be able to find transient events. So the real key for Vera Rubin is to find things that are short-lived like a supernova in a galaxy. So for example, let's say it takes a picture and finds 10 million galaxies, and then you realize that there's 2 supernovas you found in those 10 million. Well, then you can then send the information to Gemini, and then Gemini can zoom in on those particular galaxies and see the detail and take the spectrum or whatever on that supernova, which is a pretty cool complement to Vera Rubin. It's also going to be really good at finding comets and asteroids, near-Earth objects. So it's estimated it's going to do a tremendous improvement in finding those types of objects. Now, the next mountain over is called Sierra Tololo. And there you have about 10 telescopes larger than 1 meter, right on the top there. And then below that, you'll see on the bottom left is what's called the Mushroom Farm. And those are all the smaller telescopes. So there I am at the largest telescope there is the Victor Blanco telescope. It's a 4-meter telescope, 4.1, I think. And it's a twin to the Mayall telescope, which is on Kitt Peak. This is actually an extremely productive telescope. It's an old telescope. It was built in 1976, so it's 50 years old. But last year it had 700 research papers generated from the telescope data, which is more than any other telescope in the world. So for the last 7 years, it's generated more research papers than any other telescope. Now that's going to be very soon eclipsed by Vera Rubin, but up to now it's been phenomenal. It also has the second largest digital camera, 576 megapixels versus 3.2 gigapixels now on the Vera Rubin. So it also takes wide, about a 3-degree field in the sky. It's on a equatorial mount. That's how old it is. And that's why the observatory is so big. Normally a 4-meter telescope would be in a smaller observatory if it was built today, but the equatorial mount takes up a lot more space. The night that we got there, it was actually a little bit of clouds, and they were planning to image some type 1 supernovas, but we got a chance to have a really good detailed tour of the inside. You can see here, well, it was visible for a moment there. You can see the large and small Magellanic Clouds. This is one of the photographs taken by the telescope. And you see there's a tremendous amount of detail that the scope provides. It was interesting that these telescopes were all put in by the US a long time ago. And to simplify installation, they decided to make everything 110 volts for all the equipment. And so the whole country is 220, but they have a converter that takes 220 to 110. So everything in the building is 110, which is sort of a unique thing as an American looking at it. It does take both optical views as well as spectrum views. And this, zooming here shows you the level of detail that the telescope can provide in even very wide field objects. Recently, they've discovered that dark matter, with this telescope, they discovered that dark matter density is changing over time. It's a very recent discovery. So we're trying to understand dark matter and dark energy, and these are some of the telescopes that are helping us do that. The largest, this was interesting. We had an astronomer give us a talk on dwarf galaxies, and I learned that dwarf galaxies can be as small as 1,000 stars. I thought, how can you have a galaxy with 1,000 stars? Why isn't that called a star cluster? And the answer is that if it has dark matter in it, it's a galaxy. If it just stars by itself, it's a star cluster. So that was interesting to learn. Also, they've discovered RR Lyra stars. So for those who don't know, an RR Lyra star is a special kind of a pulsating variable star, like a Cepheid variable, that you can use as a standard candle to find out how far away something is in the sky. And so they found out that there are RR Lyra stars that are 900,000 light years from the center of our galaxy in the dark matter halo, which means that the dark matter halo around the Milky Way is 2 million light years in diameter. So I always think of the Milky Way as being 100,000 light years across, but the influence of the Milky Way is actually 2 million light years, which really surprised me. That was something new. You also saw the flats panel there for a minute. This telescope also found the largest comet ever discovered. It's about 80 miles in diameter, and it's not going to come anywhere near the Earth. I think the closest it gets is Jupiter's orbit in 2031. But this is the telescope that discovered it. Let's see here. Okay. Then we went to the Mushroom Farm. And here there are, that's a distant view of Gemini and Vera Rubin from the Tierra Sololo mountain. But the Mushroom Farm has got several dozen smaller telescopes. Most of them are 1 meter or less, A couple of them are a little bit bigger, but most of them are 1 meter. There's one 80-inch telescope, I think we saw. So we got to go in a lot of these domes as well and look at some of these. A lot of them are owned by countries. You'll see one owned by Taiwan. A lot of them are owned by universities. University of Manchester had one of the telescopes. Different cities around the world and universities own some of the telescopes. And they all do different things. So we got to go inside and there's a 6-inch Pentax telescope as a guide scope, which is kind of cool on this one. And so this is the GONG. This is the Global Oscillation Network Group telescope. So this is a network of 6 solar telescopes that are all over the world in such a way that there's always one telescope can see the sun, but they hope with weather and so on. And one of them is there. And so GONG takes pictures in hydrogen alpha of the sun every day and posts them on the internet. So it's a really good research tool for solar, and they're looking at adding more GONG telescopes to the network around the world. So Cerro Tololo was really interesting because it had a lot of telescopes, and this was a 1.5 meter telescope we had to look at. We could walk up those blue steps and have a look at the mirror. And almost everywhere we went, they were happy to move the telescopes around. Let's look at the mirror, open the dome, let us look out the windows, and it was really tremendous how accommodating they were to us. And this is kind of a view I took, just kind of going 360 around the top of the mountain on Cerro Tololo, showing the different observatories that are up there. But everywhere we went, they were extremely accommodating and allowed us to kind of see whatever we asked and answer any questions that we had. So from there, we then flew up the coast a little further to, I think it's got it on my shirt here, San Pedro de Atacama. And that's the closest town to Alma. So Alma is the Atacama large millimeter, submillimeter radio array. And there are 3 sites. There's the main office in Santiago. And then there's the operations support facility here at 9,500 feet. And that's where all the work is done. And then at the very top at 16,500 feet or 5,050 meters is the high site. And we went to all 3 of the sites while we were there. And Chilean law says that if you have any facilities above 3,000 meters, that they have to be, you have to have supplemental oxygen. And so this facility is at 2950 okay, for a deliberate reason. But when you go to the high site, you have to have supplemental oxygen. I'll talk about that. Let me pause this picture right there. Oh, I missed it. Let me see if I can go back. I want to show you that. So ALMA is a network of 66 radio telescopes. There are 54 that are 12 meters in diameter, and then there are 12 that are 7 meters in diameter, and they're supplied by the US and Europe and by Japan. Japan's got all the 7-meter telescopes. And they're all in different locations on this big plain at the top of this mountain. And just waiting for the picture of the pad to show up. There we go. Okay. So there are 197 of these triangular pads, and each pad has got 4 fiber optic connections and 2 power connections. And they have these enormous machines, I'll show you in a minute, that lift up these 100-ton telescopes and can trundle them over and put them down somewhere else and then reconnect them again. And they do that so they can look at different things in the sky. So if you have a whole lot of telescopes really far apart, that gives you a small field of view with high resolution. This telescope has got the highest resolution of any radio telescope in the world of 5 milliarc seconds, which is amazing. They're actually able to image a protoplanetary disk. Let me stop this here. This is the machine. So these 2 of these enormous machines, this one's called Lori, and they're made in Germany, these machines. And to put it in reference, you can see people standing at the back underneath the other end, but these wheels are a little bit taller than me. I'm 6 feet. So it's a big machine. And these parts right here lift up the radio telescopes. So we'll keep going here. There's a radio telescope inside this support hanger at the back there. It's one of the 7-meter ones, one of the smaller ones. And they're basically, these parts here are caught by the machine and lifted up, and then it takes the radio telescope and puts it down somewhere else, and then they can reconfigure the setup. So they get 1,800 different proposals every year for what they want to look at with these radio telescopes, and they allow 400. So I said, does that mean that you actually have more than one observing session finished every day? And they said, yes. In most cases they do. There's my phone said the elevation was. So they are operating 24 hours a day, right? These are radio telescopes. They don't care if it's, let me stop it here. They don't care if it's nighttime or daytime. So I asked if this was the highest observatory in the world, and they said, no, that is. So the Tokyo Atacama Observatory was built recently, and it's about 600 meters higher than ALMA. And this dome here has got an 8-meter telescope built by Tokyo. And so that one is now the highest telescope in the world. ALMA is the highest radio telescope in the world still. And when we were there, they just had a snowstorm. But the first time in 10 years it has snowed there. This is the Atacama Desert. And when they have weather events, what they do is they turn all the dishes pointing horizontally, so the wind is coming from the back, and it protects the dishes. Now, imagine you've got 66 telescopes at varying distances from the control room. What they have to do is they have to correlate the signals from the radio telescopes so they all arrive at the same time. So they have 2 supercomputers. One is 16 petaflops and one of them is 11 petaflops. And what these do is these take into account the different fiber optic distances to the different pads, so they can actually combine the signals from telescopes at different distances and then create composite images, which is pretty amazing technology. And all that's being upgraded. They're upgrading receivers. There's a big project now to upgrade the receivers and upgrade the supercomputers. And they're going to be 100 times faster and about 1/5 the footprint of the current computers, as things get smaller, right? But I thought that was pretty interesting. And it'll have the effect of adding 5 new telescopes virtually with the improved sensitivity. I showed earlier there was a picture of a gizmo, and that was basically one of the receiver devices that fits inside the telescope. They have multiple ones of those that are running at about 2.8 Kelvin. They're all super cooled. And you can see the oxygen tank that I had to carry. So whenever you go up there, you have to pass a health test at the main operations facility at 9,500 feet. And so every single person, pause here, because this is a funny story too. Pause. Okay. Every person that goes up to the high site has to have their blood pressure checked and their oxygen level on their fingertip checked. And you have to be over 90% oxygen level and under 140 blood pressure. And when you go to higher elevations, those numbers get worse for most people anyway. So there were 10 of us in our group, and 7 of us passed, including me, thank goodness. So 3 of the people, unfortunately, could not go to the top site. They weren't allowed to for health reasons, but that's the Chilean law. On the second day, 9 of the people passed. So they tried to help us. They said if you failed the first time, like if your blood pressure was like 150 or something, they would say, okay, just relax, lay on the cot for 15 minutes, and we'll test you again. They give everyone a second chance to pass the test, and helped a few people. But they are very strict about that. That's a Chilean law. You have to have supplemental oxygen once you're above 3,000 meters. So we all did that. Everywhere we went in these observatories around Chile, we found trophies. And I said, what's that all about? And so they have an inter-country observatory Olympics every year. So all the observatories send their personnel, and they do Olympic events. Maybe a little easier than normal Olympic events, but they have Olympic events. And they're all very proud to display their trophies. And it turns out that ALMA at the high site is the 2nd most hostile observatory location in the world. Anybody guess what the most hostile observatory is? It's the South Pole telescope. Okay, there's a telescope at the South Pole, and they have at the South Pole telescope, they have an annual round the world run. So it's a 5-kilometer run around the South Pole, and when you finish the run, you get a certificate saying you ran around the world, which is kind of fun. So those animals were vacuna. Vacuna is a relative of llamas, and we saw those. You can read this thing on the text there at the same time, but they have an analogy to adaptive optics on these radio telescopes as well, compensating for water vapor. So we're in the Atacama Desert, which is super dry, which is very important because water vapor absorbs millimeter and submillimeter wavelengths. And that's why the VLA telescopes in New Mexico can't see these wavelengths. So I'm going to show a slide in a moment, which will show you, it'll contrast the wavelengths detected by these different telescopes, so you can sort of see how they fit together. But this is one of the only sites in the world where you can see these wavelengths of light because A, it's so high, and B, it's got the very, very dry climate. The dishes are designed to be very robust. There's a large Magellanic Cloud there. The dishes are designed to be very robust. They just basically do maintenance, like mechanical maintenance on the bearings and the gears and things like that. The electronics last a long time. And you know, the presence of all these observatories in Chile has actually helped a lot with the infrastructure there, so that it's given a lot of employment to the local population. There's a really good cooperation between the citizens of Chile and the surrounding towns and the observatories. We saw some demographics, and over half, let me stop it here, over half of the population of these observatories is often held by local folks. So here at the top, you can see wavelengths from UV up to radio. And then here I'm showing the parts of the spectrum that these telescopes can see. So you'll see, for example, that Gemini South can see further into the infrared than Vera Rubin can. And then here's ALMA. ALMA can see the sub-millimeter and millimeter bands. And then, unfortunately, this little thing at the bottom is blocking a VLA. But you'll see the VLA line right here. It's exactly from 31 gig to 30 gig. So the VLA is seeing long radio waves, not the short radio waves that the ALMA can see. So they are very, very complementary telescopes to each other. So these, this is the control center. Let me stop this here, this picture. So this is down in Santiago. They have a dashboard that shows the status of the telescopes. So you can see there's 11 by 6 here, 66 telescopes. The green is obvious, but they had some snowstorm problems. With the snowstorm came some of the receiver dishes got snow inside them, and they're pointing them at the sun right now for the snow to sublimate away. It's hard to clean that out. Some of them are different colors are meant for like upgrades for receivers or engineering maintenance or things like that. So that was kind of interesting to see the status of all the telescopes. Because they have such high resolution, these telescopes have given us, for example, the first glimpse of a protoplanetary disk. So there's a picture you can see where you can see a star and you can see planets forming around that star. And that's because it's got the 5 milliarc-second resolution, which no other telescope has got. It's fun looking here. You can see the Pleiades in the top left corner upside down from our perspective, and Taurus. So it's fun looking in the sky from down there and seeing familiar constellations upside down from the perspective of somebody in Arizona. Pretty cool. So I'd also like to talk a little bit about why this is a good investment. All this cool stuff that I went to see. So, you know, the U.S. in 2024 spent 0.09%, less than 1% of our federal budget on astronomy research projects like these types of telescopes. And so what do we get for that? Would be a good question. So remember when you were a kid, maybe they had this concept of exploratory surgery, where the doctors would open you up and see what was wrong by looking inside you. Well, these radio telescopes years ago developed something called aperture synthesis technology, which allowed them to see things in space a special way. They were able to adapt that technology to CAT scans and MRIs. And so that the diagnostic imaging of people inside your body is a direct descendant of technology used by radio telescopes. And the savings in healthcare is in the trillions for that alone. Digital camera technology used to have satellites would have a film canister and drop the film canister and be recovered on Earth. Well, they said, well, that's not going to be very effective. So they started working on digital camera technology. So the digital cameras that are in your phones are basically direct descendants of needs that started with space-based telescopes and cameras. The reason that a dinosaur is not speaking to you this evening is they didn't have a space program. So when the asteroid came, they couldn't avoid it or deflect it. And Vera Rubin's going to be able to show us all the possible hazardous asteroids that could potentially come towards the Earth. And that's going to allow us to send missions to deflect them or move them or find that they're not going to be a problem or whatever. And you know, all of us have insurance for our homes. This is going to insure our planet, basically. These telescopes develop new material sciences, which have led directly to innovations in aviation and automobile industries. If you look at big data management, so Vera Rubin's going to be generating 20 terabytes every night of data. So how to manage big data is it's really important. It's got applications in finance and healthcare and cybersecurity. Those things are all benefiting from that. Solar observatories help us understand space weather and climate change. Let's see here. Fusion advances will be coming eventually. Techniques used to study cosmic rays have led to procedures for targeting tumors and cancer cells and cancer surgery. And satellite technology, of course, you know about that. Astronomy increases science literacy. So children get excited about astronomy. They decide to take up engineering or STEM types of careers, and that's good for science literacy, which is good for all of us. And pure research often leads to unexpected benefits. So a good example of that would be, Einstein with, E equals mc squared, and some of those fundamental forces like, black holes, dark energy, dark matter, they may seem abstract and fanciful today, just like relativity was considered kind of a fanciful thought experiment, not very practical, but obviously now that's led to nuclear energy, for example. And quantum mechanics was thought of to be some abstract thing that doesn't matter, but that led directly to the transistor and the integrated circuit and then the computer. Looking at pulsars led directly to GPS accuracy. So GPS would not work without pulsars, and pulsars were discovered with radio telescopes. So a lot of the things that we take for granted in our daily life are directly related to developments that came from space science. Let me see here. I think this is most of what I wanted to say. As I said before, by the year 2040, 80% of all the observatories in the world are going to be in Chile for the reasons that I've outlined before. And these investments are a great investment for a very tiny amount of our budget. I wish they would spend more, frankly. All right, so that's basically I think what I wanted to talk about. That covers the presentation. And at this point, I will take any questions. So it's interesting that they have this gigantic machine with the antenna on it, with the radio telescope on it. There's a guy walking in front of it with like a Nintendo controller, and he basically just go left, go right, and it sort of follows him along. It only goes at like 3 miles an hour, so it takes a while. Takes a while. It would take, depends on the distance, obviously, it wants to go. Almost every day, some get moved. Because there's, as I said, there's a different project every day. They're doing over 1 project a day. And most of them are with clusters of telescopes, but sometimes they have individual telescopes doing things.
I'd just like to know, when did you start referring to 1.7 meter telescopes as small?
Well, the 4 meter telescope is now medium. Yes, I'd love a 1.7 meter telescope.
When we went to the mirror lab, because that's where those are made, right?
Yeah, Karis Mirror Lab.
So they talked to us about the fact that they cover the mirrors where the telescopes are and that they don't put the mirror on. Were you able to see that?
They coat the mirrors there.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Made in Tucson, but they coat the silver, the highly reflective surface is done at the observatory. No. They, for example, at Gemini, it's every 6 years they do it. So they're not doing it every day. And in fact, I'd rather see the telescope in operation than see them spreading silver on it. Yeah. One more back there.
Is it possible for you to go back to the slide where you're showing the frequencies that the telescopes are looking at? Or
well, anything is possible. What is it? What's your question?
So what are the different telescopes searching for in the different frequencies? Like the it's covered by the bottom bar, but what is it looking for in the radio frequency? What is the Gemini South looking for in the ultraviolet frequency?
So I can't answer that completely. I don't know the answer. Part of the answer is things which are farther away are more redshifted. They're more into the infrared. Okay, so the farther something away is, the more red it appears. And so that's why the some of these telescopes like Gemini is looking further into, and James Webb Telescope is looking the furthest into the infrared because it wants to look back to very soon after the Big Bang. So part of the answer is it wants to be able to look back in time, and that light is redshifted into the infrared. So that's part of the reason. Some objects emit energy at different wavelengths. And so to see those objects, you have to look where those wavelengths are. So for example, the stuff I talked about with ALMA, there are some things that only generate signals in the sub-millimeter and millimeter bands, and that's what ALMA can look at. Whereas other things in the radio bands, at the very bottom is kind of blocked there with the cursor. But the VLA, the Very Large Array in New Mexico, can see those, but ALMA can't see those. So they're all complementary to each other.
Okay, thanks.
Alan?
The microwave allows you to see through the interstellar dust. And that's the
Thank you.
That's a unique feature, and that's why it's so valuable.
Good. Got the brain trust here.
I did do a little chemistry in graduate school, but also remember the microwave is more associated with rotational energy rather than the light coming from the thing. So that's much cooler temperatures that you can see molecules in and stuff where you wouldn't be able to see it.
One more up front.
Years ago, I was in Kitt Peak. And when I was at Kitt Peak about 15 years ago. And when I was there, they, one of the telescopes, I was there for a night viewing, and one of the telescopes was a radio telescope. And what they tried to tell us was that they chart all the asteroids there as far as their travel. They tried to tell us that they used the radio telescopes to do the asteroid charting. Is that true?
I can't say it's true or false. I know that one of the main purposes of Vera Rubin in the optical wavelengths is to find near-Earth asteroids and Planet 9 and transient events like that. So it may be that radio telescopes can have some aspect that can see asteroids and meteors, but as far as I understand, they're mostly visible in optical wavelengths.
Well, that was 15 years ago, so I've probably changed by now. I thought it was wavelengths, like radio waves.
By the way, everybody, we hand out these microphones because we usually have like 15 to 20 people on Zoom. And if you ask your questions without the mic, the people on Zoom have no idea what you just asked because they hear an answer to a disembodied question. So anyway, so that's why we hand out the mic. We have one Zoom question I know as well, two Zoom questions.
Yeah, George online wants to know, he says, I imagine the inside of the dome gets warm during the day. Then when the shutters are open at night, it would seem a cool down period would be needed. Do these large mirrors go through a cool down period?
Yeah, so, well, you can, actually, it's great that he asked the question. This picture I've got right here. So this is Gemini South, and you can see the shutters are open on the side. So as soon as it gets after dark, they open up the side shutters as well as the main shutter for the telescope, and that allows the temperature to very quickly equalize inside the dome. Now, don't forget, we're at very high altitudes here, and I'm here in the winter. So I was in the Andes in the winter at the top of the mountain. It's pretty cold. And so the temperatures on the dome were pretty chilly when we were there. They don't warm them up for the people who work there. People who work there are wearing sweaters and fleece and things like that. So they try to keep the temperature of the dome cool all the time. So it's a good question. You want to equalize temperature as soon as possible, but they do as much as possible to mitigate it getting warm at all.
Rick wants to know, did you have a chance to see the Simons Observatory? Simons says that's also Nice, San Pedro.
I'm not familiar with that observatory. We saw the Simone telescope inside Vera Rubin, but not Simon's. Yeah. Atacama is the area, Atacama Desert. But yeah, there are other telescopes, like for example, they're building the ELT, the Extremely Large Telescope, which has got a 40-meter mirror, but that's a project done by Europe, by ESO. And so the trip that I was on was funded by the National Science Foundation. So we saw telescopes which receive funding from America. And part of the reason is they want people like me to come back and talk to guys like you and communicate the value of the science and what's going on down there to help support public support for research in astronomy. So we weren't going to places that were funded by other countries or Europe alone, for example.
It's getting sort of late. We're going to take one more question and then we'll wrap it up for the night. So Logan, take it away.
Yeah. So like when you were talking about how the Atacama Desert had snow after like 10 years, the first time ever, or like 10 years or something, what would they do if the snow ended up getting on the telescope?
Well, in that case, the optical telescopes all have domes around them, so the mirrors are protected from the weather. So if there's going to be rain or snow or some unlikely event, high winds or something, they can just close the dome. In the case of radio telescopes where they have those dishes, the snow will hit them. So as I mentioned earlier, they have a mitigation strategy. If there's a very strong wind or any kind of weather, they turn the telescope so the backs are to the wind. And so the wind's hitting the curved back of the telescope and they're pointed horizontally to protect the receivers inside. But sometimes if the snow is swirling around, it can get inside the little hole where the receiver is. And that actually happened to some of the telescopes when we were there. And you saw in that chart from the control center, they weren't all green. Some of them were red. And that's because they had to wait for the snow to sublimate, to evaporate away from the center of the dish where it accumulated during the snowstorm. It's a very rare event, as I said, every 10 years. So they weren't completely prepared for it. All right. Time to end the show. Yeah.
All right. So everybody, thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate that. It was an excellent presentation.